Okay, so the WBO has ordered Callum Smith to fight David Morrell in a fight at light heavyweight. Now, I imagine this is going to be like a title eliminator because, of course, the WBO title is held by Bivol at the moment, and I'm assuming the winner of that will be made mandatory for Bivol or whatever the situation will be there. But I want to talk a bit about the fight and stylistically and both guys. I think Callum Smith he's fringe world level in my opinion because he's fought world level guys and he's lost to them. And it depends sort of where in your estimation is Joshua Buatsi. I don't think Joshua Buatsi is world class. I think Joshua Buatsi is similar to Callum Smith, similar levels in terms of being fringe world level. But when I say world level, I mean, could you actually become a world champion at this weight division? I don't think Callum Smith can do that. David Morrell, on the other hand, I'm not too sure either. There's still some questions to be answered because he had a good fight against David Benavidez, had a good performance. Ultimately, David Benavidez was too physical for him on the back end of that fight. And even Kataev, the Imam Kataev fight, I think he lost that fight, in my opinion. And Kataev's not fought anyone near the level of a David Benavidez. And he arguably beat David Morrell. But I guess we're looking at styles, and we all know styles do make fights. And ultimately, Kataev and David Benavidez don't have a similar style to Callum Smith at all, right? Particularly Kataev. But Callum Smith's been to war a few times now, got beat by Canelo, battered by Beterbiev, sorry. But he's shown that even at this point in his career, he's been through some wars, been through enough 12-rounders, been through championship fights. He's not really gun-shy, which is something you don't often see at fighters at this stage of their career. He went to war with Joshua Buatsi. And that Joshua Buatsi win is arguably better than any win David Morrell's got on his resume. Especially when you look and you take into context the actual performance against Kataev. Right? I've got to edge, in terms of resume, I want to go with Callum Smith, but David Morrell's a tricky customer. Even in that fight against Kataev and David Benavidez, he had some really good moments where he was boxing brilliantly. Both guys aren't super big for light heavyweight at all. So I think that definitely makes this fight more competitive in that sense as well, because the sort of challenges that David Morrell faced on the back end against David Benavidez, I don't think he'll be facing those same challenges against Callum Smith. And similarly, the sort of challenges he was facing with Kataev, where Kataev was almost this immovable object and was just coming forward and throwing his punches and was sturdy. Again, I don't think those same challenges are going to apply for Callum Smith or apply to David Morrell against Callum Smith, if that makes sense. I don't think those challenges are apparent there. But of course, Callum Smith's a boxer who's a veteran at this point, been around for a while. Like I said, been through 12-rounders, been through world championship fights, been through world championship opportunities, a former world champion in his own right. But I think David Morrell's, I don't think he's got the momentum, but because ultimately Callum Smith's coming off a lot of momentum against Joshua Buatsi. But I think this is David Morrell's time, in my opinion. I think David Morrell's going to be a bit slicker, and I think stylistically this is a better fight for David Morrell. Stylistically it is. I think, of course, we're all going to look at the resumes and records, but styles really do make fights. And stylistically, Callum Smith is a better fight for David Morrell. I think David Morrell, more so than Kataev, where Callum Smith will play the game a bit more, I think. I think he'll be there to be walked onto something, whereas Kataev wasn't playing the game at all. And not to say that David Morrell lost every single round against Kataev. He didn't lose every single round. He lost the fight, though. But we'll see. It's an interesting fight, in my opinion. I think I like it as a fight. I like it stylistically because both guys come to fight. David Morrell less so. He's more of a slicker outside boxer, which I'm here for too. Which is why I'm always going to pick him, because he is, like I said, that slick outside boxer who's going to try and force Callum Smith to expose himself, over-engage, and ultimately David Morrell's going to walk him onto something. Similar to how I was talking about David Morrell going into the Kataev fight. It is similar, but I'm hoping maybe he can execute the game plan a bit better against Callum Smith, which on paper doesn't even make sense, because you're saying, Callum Smith's probably got a better resume than Kataev. But it's like heavyweight boxing for you. Anything can happen. But an interesting fight, and I don't think a date's been confirmed. I think the fight's just been ordered. So no doubt it'll probably go to purse bids, and then that fight will get made. But we'll find out. I'll be curious to know what you guys think. Do you think Callum Smith can beat David Morrell, or do you think David Morrell has got the edge over Callum Smith? Be curious to know what you guys think in the comments below. But yeah, another episode of the Seth solo side quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.